chicken.
Alrighty, what's up everyone? Welcome to the first of hopefully many videos of Behind the Mask. This being the first video of Behind the Mask, let me explain real quick what this is. Each video I plan to invite a speedrunner to speak to them to learn more about them and a game that they play blindfolded. As each video will cover a different game, the goal of these videos is to allow more people to have a better understanding on how that runner's game is played, as well as a better understanding of how games are played blindfolded in general, mostly to help with the amount of people who are skeptical about blindfolded games. I hope that this can help them understand more and not necessarily eliminate the skepticism, but let them be more knowledge of what to look for fake and real runs. And for this video, I could not think of anyone better to have on as the first guest, as this individual, with his speedrun at Awesome Games Done Quick 2015 of Child Dungeon Ocarina of Time, got many people that I know, and myself included, to at least try video games blindfolded. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am Runnerguy2489. I've been speedrunning various forms of Ocarina of Time since like 2006. And then a couple years after that, I picked up some interest in doing the game blindfolded. We can get into that, of how I kind of discovered that a little bit later. But, I've done basically challenge playthroughs. I've done speed runs. I've done different categories. So it's been quite an adventure over the years for me.
2006. I knew you've been around for a while. Your YouTube showed at least 2007. And I
Yeah,
know a lot of
yeah, it's
people
a
were
long time.
doing I know a lot of people were doing speedruns even before 2007 with Speed Demos Archive and VHS tapes.
Yeah, I was past the VHS tapes era, I think. I was able to get a capture card on my college laptop at the time, but yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, luckily when I started, I was also past the VHS. Someone helped me get a Dazzle. That thing
Oh,
messed up a
yep.
lot on my laptop, but when it did work, I was able to capture some stuff. So I was happy with at least that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Oh, so yeah, Awesome Games and Quick 2015. I believe that's probably the first time Ocarina of Time was done blindfolded on a big stage like that, correct?
Yeah, that's really the first time I think there had been any type of Ocarina of Time blindfolded, what you would consider like a speed run at any type of event.
And what I like about those types of events, and especially with AGDQ getting bigger and bigger crowds, you can watch the entire run of that. And I recently watched it a couple weeks ago again, and just seeing everyone in the crowd just like leaning forward and be like, "Is he going to get it?" And then when you finally get whatever, if it's your first time with a hard part or a part that you failed a couple times, they all just like silently cheer in the background, which I find always fun to see.
Yeah, there's definitely for me a component of the blindfolded part for the viewer where every room kind of could become like this really on the edge of your seat moment where they have all the information. They know that the runner's really, really close, but the runner might not know that.
Yeah.
So it kind of won't he get this type of push and pull that I think is really, engaging for the viewers.
Yeah, from my own experience as well, from trying some games blindfolded, gone back to see whatever I was doing and thought, man, I overshot something, and I was like right there at where I needed. And I was like, oh, I just needed to go a little further.
Yep, yep. But yeah,
Uh,
it creates a good environment, I think, for those types of marathon runs.
and as a funny little thing, I don't know if you know this, but there's a moment about 49 minutes into your AGDQ run where for some reason there's like four people who have to scratch their nose at the same time.
I saw that YouTube comment, and then you click it, and it's like, wow! It wasn't just like two people; it was like 4 or 5 people in the crowd. There was like a complete glitch in the
Yeah,
matrix there.
I I saw that in the comment as well, and clicked that, and I was like, "That's so weird that four
Uh-huh.
people just they didn't even look at each other. They're all locked in on your game, but just all at the same time, just scratching."
Yeah, they're not even in like the same row, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like if I do this, someone 2 rows behind isn't going to see it. So it
Yeah.
was funny.
Alrighty. So, outside of speed runnings, and I'm pretty sure this is in your descriptions on YouTube and Twitch. What other hobbies do you have?
I am a runner first and foremost. I was actually outdoor running. I've done 5K races. I did track and field in high school. I've run marathons. So I've been doing that since I was, a very young child. And for me, it kind of, when I found out speedrunning, the video games, it kind of just felt like a really natural fit for me and a hobby that I already kind of enjoyed. Um, but I like to do a lot of outdoor activities besides running. I forage for mushrooms. I'm big on hiking, camping. I really like the outdoors. Um, I spend so much time with video games and on the computer. It's nice to kind of have these other hobbies that kind of take me, outside as well. So I'd say those are some of my other bigger hobbies besides kind of video games and speed running.
So is that where your username comes from then, as both runner guy as someone who likes to run and a speed run?
Yeah. I came up with that username on forums back in like 2004 or whatever, before I even knew what speedrunning was. And
Huh.
so when I found speedrunning, Speed Demos Archive and those things, it's like, well, that still fits, so I'm
Hmm.
gonna keep it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very cool convenience that it can mean
Yep.
both ways. Because I thought, oh, runner guy was just for speed running, but I didn't think about
Yeah.
the actual hobby of running.
Yep.
Running
Yep.
running was always one of my worst things for PE. I
Mm.
get winded so fast, and my stomach just wants to throw up whenever I run too much. So I was like, oh, that's my hardest exercise.
Yeah, for me, I felt there were a lot of parallels I was drawing between the two. There's a lot of practice, there's a lot of training for both, and then it's like you have a GDQ run, which is the main event, the thing that you've been practicing for, versus like you have a 10K race or you have a marathon or something that you've been training months for, and it all kind of comes down to that one day. So I see kind of similar aspects to both.
Mm. Uh, Real quick, do you know what initially got you into video games, whether you were like very young or later in your life, what your first game was and what got you into playing games?
Yeah, I think I was like 3 or 4 years old, and my aunt and uncle had no, a Nintendo, the original Nintendo, and we played Super Mario Brothers 3 together. They were mostly playing it. I couldn't do a whole lot yet, but
Hmm.
they kind of showed me in World 1 how to get the two whistles and go to World 8, and that just kind of was my first experience with video games. And then I
Wow.
think when I turned 4, like my 4th birthday, I got a Nintendo myself, and they gifted me the game. Like they just gave me their copy of Super Mario Brothers 3. So it's been basically my whole life I've been interacting with video games.
Man, the fact that you got to see the whistles so early on, I didn't I I played games for since I was 3 as well, starting with Tekken 3. It was easy
Okay.
for a 3-year-old to button mash and win against easy mode CPUs, but I remember in middle school when my dad finally got the older Marios and he's like, "Play this." And after a week of
Mhm.
playing, he's like, "Alrighty, let me show you this." And he showed me how to wrong warp or the secret warp to get to World 4 and then World 8 and Mario 1. And then he showed me the missiles and or whistles in Mario 3. I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh wow, I didn't know older video games had like big sequence cuts like that." And
Yeah, and it makes me wonder because it's such a different time. But like, how did my aunt and uncle find those whistles? Like,
hmm
what were they doing? you know, Here it's like, well, you'd see that online. Somebody would
hmm
have talked about how to do it. But yeah, I know. I guess it was in a strategy guide or something that someone got the information and then it spread more organically. But they passed it on to me. So
According to my dad, him and his older brother would play games and find random blocks, and then they would go to school and discuss people. So it's the old story of went to the playground and
yeah.
said, "Did you find this secret?" And that's how he found out most of the secrets that he showed me. I grew up
Yeah. Very
mostly
cool.
with I grew up mostly with Final Fantasy, Zelda, and Kingdom Hearts, where they don't really have big sequence cuts like that of, oh, get this
Mhm.
item and you skip half the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was definitely an experience for me. And with Tekken and other fighting games that I grew up playing, you're just beating up a person, so there's no need to cut 5 stages when it's just win each round and win this imaginary tournament.
Yeah, yeah.
So with Zelda, what was your first Zelda game?
So I had on the Nintendo, I think I also got the Zelda 2,
Oh,
um, was my true first Zelda game that I played. And I was 4 or 5 years old. I remember getting to the first palace, and that's about as far as I ever
mm,
got at that age. That game was way too hard. I would probably today still die like 50 times trying to beat it. Um, but it was not until um, I think my second Zelda would have been Ocarina of Time because I did not get A Link to the Past, and I think after Ocarina of Time I might have gotten like a Game Boy and got the um, Link's Awakening. So yeah, I'd say my very first experience was Zelda 2, but I wasn't really truly, I wouldn't say playing Zelda until it was truly Ocarina of Time for me.
mm-hmm. For me, it would have been technically Oracle of Seasons, just
Okay.
because the how the cartridge is, where it's see through with the green motherboard looking thing and the label. I was
Hmm.
like, this looks so cool. I want this for my Game Boy.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
at the same day, my parents bought Smash Brothers and uh, Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. I didn't
Okay.
realize that the game they bought and the game I wanted was the Zelda series. I just saw this cool game. I
Hmm.
played someone else's save because it was a used game, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on in this game, and just turned it off 10 minutes in. And then the
Uh-huh.
very next day, my mom wanted to try Ocarina, and at this point, I hadn't played too many video games. It was mostly fighting games, racing games, uh, anything that's like what I call a one-track game, where you just do one objective and that's it.
Hmm.
And so when she booted up Ocarina, here we have this game where you can run around in a 3D space. You can cut the grass and cut the signs and talk to characters, and each item you pick up stays with you, and you can use that to advance further. And I'm like, this is far different than anything I've ever seen in a video
Hmm.
game. I need to play that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was around the time that I was starting to learn to read, so video games were slowly becoming a bit easier. And Ocarina was mostly visuals with maybe needing to read to know where to go next. But
Right, right.
so is Ocarina your favorite Zelda game, or do you have one that you actually like more? You just spend more time with Ocarina.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time's basically always been my favorite Zelda. I just can't see any world where anything comes even close at this point. Just like you said, the 3D world of it was magnificent at the time. Um, Truly just changed everything about how Zelda games work. Um, and I grew up kind of in the perfect era of I was old enough to kind of work through the game by myself, unlike a lot of the earlier games where I was needing help or I was just kind of stumbling around.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it was also the time when kind of I had the internet for the first time, whether that was like my first home computer, like a Windows 95 or 8 or whatever it was, or like a library at the school. It was like you could go online and look up how to get the Triforce, and there were all these rumors, and the story and the lore of it was like so. It just added this extra layer for me. So and this is all before I even found speedrunning from it. So yeah, the game is just um, truly just a cut above the rest for me, and probably always will be.
Mm-hmm. Have you played many of the Zelda titles, or just a small amount of them?
I had at one point, probably now up to Skyward Sword, done all of the console ones. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually went in order and kind of went through the release date back in like 2008 or something, and did all of the console ones. And then I played Twilight Princess when it came out, um, and then Skyward Sword, I guess, when it came out. But the handhelds, I've done a little bit less. I did like Link's Awakening for the Game Boy, um, but I haven't played too many other handheld ones.
For Ocarina, did you at one point just decide to see how fast you can beat it before you learn the speed runs, or did you start speedrunning it after you heard about what speedrunning is?
Yeah, I had never considered doing a speed run of that type of game. It really never occurred to me that was a thing to go fast in a game like that. It was actually a very slow-paced game for me. I always tell the story. I had a second file that I just called, the name was Fish, and like I would beat the Deku and then I could leave the forest, go to the fishing pond, and like I just chilled out and caught fish. Like,
Oh,
um, but yeah, I was somewhat aware of like Mario Kart Ghost Trials and like the GoldenEye like cheats. You had to go through a level in a certain amount of time. So kind of those were probably my first experiences with like going fast or trying to do some type of speed strategy. But it wasn't until I was aware that like that was a whole thing that I looked back on some of my favorite N64 games and tried to incorporate it into those.
yeah. I think the fishing pond was one of the areas I avoided the most in Ocarina of Time. I did not understand exactly how it worked, and even
Mhm.
to this day, I really don't understand. Is it just completely luck whether the fish decides to leave or not?
Yeah, so I feel like even speedrunners for a long time, as much as we know about the game, like fishing was not a huge aspect of it because it doesn't pop up on most speedruns, maybe like 100% run. But yeah, the once the fish is like hooked to the line, I think it's every so often there's a random chance that it can just release. So you can't really do anything about it as you're reeling it in. It's gonna let go or it's not. And I think as Child Link, and I think as the fish gets bigger and as you get bigger, it increases the chance a little bit, but it's basically up to just randomness at that
Yeah.
point.
I think as a kid, I tried different things like just holding back or trying to make it go. If it's to the right of the screen, hold left. If it's left, right. And then at some point, I was like, oh, it's fishing. And I started spinning the wheel with the palm of my hand. And it felt like nothing made a difference. And I was like, I guess you just hold A and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's funny because even still today, I know that certain combinations don't matter. It's almost like the Pokeball catching the thing. You hit like B
Yeah.
and up or whatever. It's like I just hold back on I hold R and I keep reeling. I just feel like that's of course that's better. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things, I think.
I like that you mentioned that you had a save file for the fishing pond though, because I didn't have a separate file for something like that, but I would if I just didn't feel like trying to figure out the game, I would just boot up the game and go to like Hyrule Market or Goron City and just listen to the music and just
Hmm.
sit there. And I was like, okay, now let's go to the next area and listen to that area song.
It had a really good soundtrack, really, really good soundtrack. And as I'm sure we'll get into with the Blindfolded, it has a good sound system in general.
Hmm.
For games at the time, it's always talked about how good those graphics were, uh, revolutionary at the time. But
Hmm.
it also, uh, the aspect of sound is kind of not as talked about, but it really was good as well.
And then, uh, when did you start playing Ocarina of Blindfolded, or what got you into going, hey, let's see if I can do this with my eyes closed?
Yeah, so for me, I was already on Speed Demos Archive at the time. That's kind of where all of the speedrunners were. And there were topics to discuss like Ocarina of Time tricks and routes and, just general discussion was happening there. But there was also an off topic board there. You could kind of just talk about, video games in general. And I saw a post on the off topic of this one guy who was asking for help. He wanted to beat Ocarina of Time, but he had been blind from birth. And he was using like a text to speech thing to, hear what people were saying on the forum. It would read, the messages out. And at the time, I thought, well, I know a lot about Ocarina of Time. Surely I can help him. And we would have phone calls at the time, kind of going over what his kind of baseline was. He actually managed to brute force the Deku Tree by himself, which was crazy. And he uploaded like a video, and it's just Link like jittering, moving around because he was using like save states to undo any time he would get lost. But what he was looking for was an actual set of instructions, like move forward this many steps, stop, wait till you hear this, do 2 side hops, hit A, open the door. Like that's what he was looking for. It would read, those instructions to him, through audio, and then he would replicate it. So I kind of dove into this with him, and it was bumpy at first. We had kind of a rough time getting started, learning like what instructions were good for him, what instructions weren't good for him. We really struggled through like Dodongo's Cavern and kind of just getting through big areas like Hyrule Field, because he would just get lost, and it's like, oh, I got to look at this instruction. Oh, this isn't working. So it really wasn't till like Jabu where I felt like we had one session where it started to click, and it was like we were on a Skype call for 6 hours together. Like I was just firing out instructions, doing testing my, I was playing the game visually, trying to come up with things, and then reading it to him, and he would like try it and say that worked or that didn't work. And so for me, I just kind of natural curiosity, I just at some point was like, well, I already wrote half the like child section. Let me just try it blindfolded myself. And I think I struggled, even though I had these steps, I had to memorize them. And I think my first YouTube video was in like 2008 or something, of me starting the game fresh and just trying to go through it and get the sword and get to like the Deku Tree or something. So that was my first experience with blindfolded gaming in general and trying to go through and beat the game.
Were any of the instructions you gave using any of the glitches, or are you trying to keep it glitch free for probably simplicity?
Yeah, we wanted to keep it glitch free because I think he really liked, going through the puzzles, going through the dungeons. He really, really liked doing the boss battles. I basically wrote no instructions for the boss battles.
Oh
They had
wow.
enough sound and he could kind of figure out what he needed to do. But yeah, it was not the goal wasn't to just wrong warp to the end credits. We wanted to go through the game, and that's kind of how I also went through my first blindfolded kind of challenge. I won't even necessarily call it a speed run yet, but just trying to go through and beat the game blindfolded myself. I didn't want to just skip to the end.
Yeah. And this individual is Genuine S Corruption, correct?
Yeah, sorry, I did not mention his name. On the forums, he was Genuine S Corruption. I believe that is his YouTube as well. There's still that playlist if anybody wanted to go and look. I think it's from like 2009. He was uploading those 2008, 2009. He was uploading those videos himself, and doing it through like whatever screen capture Mupin was the emulator. So he was using. It's basically a task. I'll say it was like a recording, but he was doing it, kind of with the save states along the way.
And I remember in the AGDQ video, you also were mentioning that story at the end of the run. And when you had said something along the lines of he reached out to you or you reached out to him, him wanting help, my initial thought was, oh, he had like a parent like typed it out for him and read it. I didn't know about the text to speech. I didn't even know they had text to speech way back then for using the computer. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've had discussions over the years, me and him, of just kind of certain programs in their accessibility features. It tends to be one that gets kind of brushed aside. That's not developed as much as it probably should be. And I know Discord, he was having trouble when Discord replaced Skype. Its accessibility features weren't quite up to snuff yet for him to kind of use, and he didn't know where the windows were. He didn't know where buttons were, and it's like he has a separate program. I think it's called JAWS, JAWS. It stands for something I forget, but it kind of interacts with the computer for people that are blind, and it's constantly reading as he moves his mouse or tabs. I guess he doesn't use the mouse, tabs into different things. It will like tell him what's the active window or what button he's on or what this is, So yeah, he was on the forum literally by himself. He was always came off to me as really bright, individual to be able to navigate around and be on the internet just like anybody else at the time. So yeah, those tools were available.
Do you know the reasoning why they chose Ocarina for the game?
I think he had liked the challenge of it more than anything. I know um, he also beat. There were some games that were kind of made for blind people that were basically just sound games,
Oh,
and he found them kind of easy.
hmm.
um, they weren't super developed or anything, but he had heard about how great Ocarina of Time was. It was critically acclaimed basically from its release, and being a 3D game, I think he really just liked interacting with it. And I think one of his friends, he talked about being at school, like school for the blind. Some people could see a little bit, and like one of his friends had the game on like the cartridge, I think, and he would just plead for his friend to like get me to the boss. I'll be able to beat the boss, because he couldn't see the rest, but his friend might have had enough vision just to get there. And so he I think fell in love with the game the same way I did.
Yeah, and the way you were saying of him being in a 3D space versus a simplified game, like I was saying earlier of Ocarina, it was cool that there was this game where you could pick up a rock and do something with the rock. You can cut the grass, cut the sign. You run in the water and you hear the water. The fish swim away from you in the pond when you get in the water. It's just going from, and probably from my experience as well, going from those simpler games like fighting games where you just mash buttons, or a racing game where you just drive forward, to a game that felt as close to real as anything has felt for a video game. I could
Mm-hmm.
definitely understand how that could probably be a an interest for someone who can't see, and then just hearing that, oh, I'm actually interacting with this world. If I run up to this ladder or not know there's a ladder and just hear Link climbing, it's like, oh, there's something that I'm climbing on. Oh, there's
Mm-hmm.
webs that I'm stepping on. Oh, this enemy is clacking its lips and then and lunging at me.
Yeah, a lot of cool things to interact with, and I think he's played like Pokemon, which is more 2D moving
Hmm.
tiles, right? It's a lot easier to move around, and I think he's done some like RPG type stuff as well, where really the hardest part of those is just learning the menus.
Yeah,
Um,
menus and how many hits it takes before someone dies from a boss hit.
right, yeah.
uh, I know at some point after you completed Ocarina, you went back and did 100%. Did he ever also do 100%, or was it just happy with beating the game? Do you
I
know?
think he was just happy with beating the game. Yeah, I don't think he ever went back and did the whole 100%, like I had done, and I had done that not with instructions. I kind of liked to just go at it and use my previous visual knowledge of the game, right, to kind of bump up against walls and figure out what it was. And I have this picture in my head of the layout of a room or a layout of an area, and I have to use the sounds to kind of confirm whether I was right or reinvent something because I was wrong. My visual picture wasn't quite, the details weren't quite there, or I had it shaped differently. So I liked that aspect, but that's not really an aspect of kind of the speed running of the game
Hmm.
blindfolded. That's more just like the challenge of using your previous knowledge. So I explored several avenues with that, but I think once he beat the game, he was happy.
Did you ever play a portion first to refresh yourself before tackling an area blindfolded for your playthrough, or was it just all, I think I remember how to do this, let me just try it the whole way through?
Yeah, I think there was like one area maybe in Water Temple during my first playthrough where I just wanted to get a sense of the room's layout because I had not done Water Temple casually in in a while, so I just wanted to make sure I was still good on it. But once I kind of got to the doing 100%, that was all basically just based on knowledge.
Yeah.
I've done a similar thing in Majora's Mask where I played through that, and I don't know that game nearly as well. So I was every time I was kind of scouting out. Like I didn't want to come up with an exact setup for everything, but I wanted to like refresh my kind of visuals on the rooms. So I would kind of just like walk around and see what stuff looked like.
I just figured that it was, let me do this area visually. Okay, I got a refresher and do it blindfolded. I didn't realize that you pretty much brute force your way with the
Oh yeah,
knowledge you had of the game. So that's even more impressive in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was fun. It was fun to. I really liked the areas where I mean, I could see it both ways. Where my visual was correct, like I thought it was this way, and it was. Like that's super exciting for me. But the ones where it's like the room isn't quite laid out, maybe it's like I thought this was a 90-degree corner, and it's like a 45-degree corner or something
mhm.
like that, and it's enough to throw me off, and I can't find the door, and to be able to blindly overcome that is hard. I feel like we so much get like, and I'm a bit stubborn, so it's like, no, I know it's this way,
Mhm.
and it can take a while, but you start to let your guards down and kind of open up to the idea that the room might not be the way you thought. And I feel like that's where the true like discovery comes from at that point. And that's really rewarding, I think, to then find the door after you already had a wrong picture in your head. So I really enjoyed playing the game that way.
Was there ever a spot of the game that you had thought ahead of time and considered, man, I don't even know if I can do that part blindfolded, or were you confident that the whole way through you'll be able to find a way to get through
There was, I think the two archery games, mini games,
it?
were probably the toughest. The adult one where the ruby order is it's the same patterns, but they're shuffled. So you
Mhm.
don't know which pattern's coming first. And then the other one on the horse is kind of like an auto scroller, but you still have to aim the bow and hit the targets.
Mhm.
So both of those I thought might create challenges. And those were ones that took me multiple sessions and did take like, I'm trying something, it's not working. I look at the video after, I see the things that were failing. I try and adjust and come up with something else. I try it again. I fail it again. Like it was a more iterative, like kind of visually and blindfolded tweaking things until I was able to get them. But I was a little bit nervous that those might be beyond kind of the realm of possibility. But fortunately, I was able to do them both.
How was the the giant Poe hunting? Was that actually easier than you expected, or was that also difficult with the bow?
Not too bad because I don't think you have to be on the horse. You can just kind of hit the point, and then
Oh.
they don't always spawn if you're on foot, but there is a percent chance. I think it's something like 30% chance a big Poe will spawn still. And from there, it's more a matter of just kind of using you got to use your left right noise quickly because they will disappear. But
Okay.
if you can kind of center that noise quick and fire off a couple shots, getting them wasn't too bad, I don't think.
I didn't even consider them making a noise as they move, and I actually didn't know that they could spawn without Epona. I guess I just
Mhm.
always did it with Epona and just tricked my brain into thinking that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that that I wouldn't necessarily say are like glitches or I'm kind of you know skipping a thing in the game. But obviously, I think it is intended to be on Epona, but I'll take it if I can do it on foot. So
Mhm. And I think the archery is both for slingshot, the bow, and I'm assuming you were talking about the Gerudo Training Ground archery minigame.
the horseback one up at
Hmm.
the top, yeah.
Those all have to use a what we would use now as a right analog stick for our games, but back then it was first person view and you had to aim in like a
Mhm.
360 space, which is far more difficult blindfolded than say doing normalized movement where you side hop 2 times to the left, backflip while holding Z target, and I think that's
Yeah.
good that Ocarina that's what you can get away with throughout the entirety of the game, and the optional stuff is the only thing that uses those first person views like that.
Yeah, the movement in Ocarina of Time is fantastic for speedrunning. It has a lot of really precise tricks, but it has a lot of really precise movement. So we can get certain angles, we can get certain distances, very repeatable, very consistent. And blindfolded is really the same way. It's, if you do 3 side hops from entering this place, you're always going to be at the same spot, and that's critical for a lot of things. And I'd say as I was writing instructions for Genuine S Corruption, the hardest things we encountered were hookshot targets. Like trying to
Mm.
get into Force Temple even was, it just created a new issue of you got to aim this thing in like a vertical space. And I have kind of the precision of a joystick. He's on the keyboard, and
Oh,
his
dang.
up app is like, how long he holds that key is gonna, dictate like moving the hook shot. So those were challenging for us to use those kind of truly first person viewing, moving things around, was the most difficult stuff.
I didn't even consider the hook shot because everything else is Z target and you shoot them hook shot, like
Yeah,
you said, Force Temple or even the Water Temple. And then that
yeah.
reminded me of the Dompe race. How was that blindfolded?
Um, Typically, it was challenging for sure, just because of the time constraint. But you kind of come up with a strategy with backwalking, mostly backwalking and side hops to kind of move fairly quick. Speed running, it's typically faster to roll and like round the corners, but this wasn't too bad. You had to kind of make your way and figure out a corridor, and then you'd have to start over because you'd run out of time. And then maybe the next time you get like one extra step and you get to try something. Oh, that didn't work. Start over. And then you get to that same point, and you kind of branch at that point, and then you find like the positive one. It's almost like how like the AI training with the nodes, or however they like learn how to go around a racetrack or
Mm-hmm.
something, like move a car. It's like they try all of these, you know, sending out all the children, all the branches, or however you want to call it. And like this one got a little bit further, so let's take that one, and now we're going to go a little bit further with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a lot of just kind of starting the race over and over again. But eventually, you kind of get a path that you want, and then it's just a matter of not getting hit by the flames. And there's really nothing you can do about the flames. If he's going to throw one right on your path, then you're kind of screwed. So
And then back to the movement of Ocarina, I feel it does have the luxury over most games where not only do you have movement that can move a specific amount of distance each time, you have multiple of those. A roll will go this distance, hitting a wall will go a distance, back flipping, side hopping, and then also the luxury of if Link's on grass and then is on a bridge, you're gonna hear that because now you're hearing wood steps. And then if he's in sand, if he's in water, I feel a lot of games doesn't come close to the luxury that Ocarina has with the amount of movements you have for a set distance and for the sounds that you get for moving.
yeah, for sure. It wasn't something I consciously thought about. I'm going to pick this game blindfolded because it has all these good components. But as you start to do it, it's like, yeah, as you said, I can tell when Link's on a dirt path. I can tell when he's hitting grass. I can tell when an enemy gets near. I can tell if that enemy's to my left or to my right. Like there's a lot of trying to center certain sounds or certain areas. I can slash my sword against the wall, and it makes a clang. If I'm trying to find a boulder, it makes a different noise. Like I'm using it almost like a little walking stick to round a corner or like
Mhm.
move along an edge. There's a lot of really, really good sound cues as well, besides just the rigid kind of movement. And like you mentioned, yeah, it was a really good point. It's not just side hops. It's you can try backflips. You can do side hops and rolls. You can do a side roll and change your angle. You can, do long rolls. You can do spin attack. Like there's all these different moves that are in your toolbox to kind of navigate through areas.
I think the other big thing that helps Ocarina is the Z targeting, so you can keep the camera in one specific spot. Because otherwise, Ocarina, if I haven't played it in a while, but I believe the camera turns with Link all at all times. It's like an auto camera, so Z target just helps prevent that.
Yeah, if you're out in like a just an open area and the camera's behind Link and then he turns like 45 degrees, eventually that camera's just going to spin and kind of move roughly behind him. And then now, you're kind of off base or off. It's funny, the rooms that I get it's so easy to just, I kind of lose my mental picture of where I think Link is or where the camera is if I don't have that Z target. You know, if I'm just kind of free roaming around, it's very challenging. So yeah, being able to lock certain camera angles, being able to when you get close to a wall, there's some walls that are we almost call them like sticky walls in the speedrunning community. If your angle is slightly off from that wall, let's say you're approaching that wall at like not quite perpendicular, let's say it's like 80 degrees instead of 90, but you go and run into that wall. First, you can hear Link's feet, like he's running, and now he's slowing down. So you know you're up against the wall. If you hit Z, that wall, your Link will just snap and he'll be like right against the wall. So it's like it's a perfect way to kind of reset your angle, and then use that angle, use that camera, like you said, lock it in, and then you can do whatever moves you need to from there. So there's a lot of just the geometry of the rooms too that kind of help with targeting certain wall faces.
I wasn't aware that the game would fix Link with the Z target as well. I thought about that the other day and forgot to mention that they also running into a wall and hearing the slow down of the footsteps. You're like, oh, okay, now I'm brushing up against something. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that's just another thing to add to the list of sounds
Yeah,
that the
yep.
game helps with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some walls are a little trickier, and it kind of takes a couple of tries to get it to do that. But then, like I said, there are certain walls, we call them sticky, where it's just you can be almost like 45 degrees or something off from that wall, and you hit Z against it, and it's going to lock him, right back to it. So those walls are probably the best, just because it has a greater chance of correcting an error in a sense.
Was there any moment where you were playing and you were utilizing Z targeting, but you were accidentally too close to an enemy or an NPC, Navi locks on and just mess up your whole camera angle?
Yeah, frequently that will happen. The targeting system for combat can be really good too if you need to kill that thing, and you can get Navi to lock onto it. Now you'll hear her kind of lock onto it, and now if you're in like a mini boss room or you're in a fight room, you can kind of move around knowing you're still, locked onto it. But there's times where you don't want that to happen. You're trying to execute some other move and turn your camera, and something reached out or something got too close to you, or a gwei or something flew down a keys. And if you don't know that happened, and you hit Z, and now you're locked to that thing rather than that 90-degree
Mhm.
turn or something that you wanted. So yeah, there's inevitably moments like that are gonna kind of mess up your angle, and you have to make adjustments.
Is there any strategy where Navi actually helps? Like, I know that sometimes if you get close to something, she'll make a little jingle noise. Is that used for anything as well?
Yeah, there's some other audio cues I'd have to think, but definitely Navi flying over to a hidden grotto, or Navi flying to one of those like green spaces that she likes to fly over to. There's ones where she'll fly off to an NPC as you pass by. It's like you're not really wanting to talk to that person, but like somebody in the cookery forest, you're walking by them and you hear her fly, and then she comes back to you. It's like, okay, I walked by that person and now I'm, further ahead because I'm away from that person. So definitely Navi's cues are quite useful for multiple things other than just enemy combat.
Uh, for your speed runs, do you play on actual console or do you do say like Wii Virtual Console or an emulator?
Usually I'm just on the Nintendo 64. I like the original. I like the N64 controller, and I
Hmm.
kind of just like, I'm still on my original N64 console that I got when I was a kid. So, yeah, I don't want to. I will say, I guess I'm a purist or whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it. I like the original stuff.
Do you find that someone could still play the game fine without notches, or do you think notches just helps it so much that you would just highly recommend someone use a notch controller?
Um, yeah, this game in particular, I don't use like angled moves too much. Trying to use like 45-degree-ish turns. So I would say this one's probably possible without the notches. But there are certain, times where that does come in handy.
And just out of curiosity, what do you do for splitting with your timer when you're blindfolded? Do you do a space bar? Do you have a foot pedal?
I would love a foot pedal. I should invest in one because I have a Stream Deck that has buttons on it, and one of them is like my split button. And usually I just kind of bring that right to the edge of my desk.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I kind of know roughly where on the desk it is, but yeah, it has multiple buttons on it. So I've put the split at like the bottom right corner, just so I can feel that corner and like hit that button.
Yeah.
I almost wish it had like little raised dots on it so I could braille my way to it, but yeah, it's not the best setup. I do use like a voice
Mm-hmm.
speech thing, so it will tell me you did the Deku Tree split
Mm-hmm.
in whatever time. So I know I hit the button. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I hit the right one or not. But yeah, a foot pedal I think would be a lot cleaner.
Yeah, I would like that too. For me, when I started off blindfolded speedruns, I was so used to just having splits for stuff, and I found out, oh,
Mhm.
this is adding another layer of difficulty of speedrunning because now I'm trying to search for my space bar, and since it's on a laptop, I will accidentally hit the trackpad and sometimes click something off of live split, and I don't know that I've done that. And then I
Yeah.
finish the run and I look back and I'm still at split number 2 of 8. And so I've since changed it to where splits are the control button on the very bottom left of my keyboard. So
Mhm.
it's much easier to find, but I still have moments where I'm like, where even is my laptop?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I sometimes, if I get back into it, even just my console isn't sitting on my desk. It's kind of off to the side in a TV stand type thing. So there are moments during certain speedruns where you reset or you like warp somewhere else through getting back to the menu. And I found like when I first start doing that again, I'm not used to that distance of like reaching down
Mhm.
and finding it. So I kind of stumble around my stuff till I can find the console and hit that reset button. So I probably lose a couple of seconds just in real world time of being blindfolded.
And then for the actual blindfolded speedruns themselves, you currently have the world record for Ocarina defeat Ganon, correct?
Yes, currently I'd still like to improve it a little bit, but yeah, that's kind of more recently kind of picked up a little bit of steam. So
Hmm.
I've enjoyed doing that run. It's a nice kind of short run. You don't have to get too invested, but it still has a lot of really cool tricks and glitches that are possible blindfolded.
I find it interesting how the concept is similar to the old defeat Ganon route, which is get a bottle, use the bottle to glitch to the end and beat it. But for blindfolded, instead of collecting like 8 Cuckoos or however many there are in Kakariko Village, you're like, let's go to the opposite end of Hyrule, fish for a little bit, and then get the bottle from the golden Zora scale, I believe it's called, and
Yeah,
then
yep.
go inside Zora's domain, do some stuff, and I think it's funny how the concept is the same, but blindfolded does a completely different route than visual.
Yeah, there's certain things when trying to come up with a blindfolded route, it's like, is this possible? And you could say like collecting the Cuckoos in Kakariko is possible. I mean, I've done it for 100% runs,
Hmm.
but it's very inefficient because the Cuckoos are like constantly hopping around on the
Hmm.
ground and they have like a radius of where they're going to be. So you could essentially the strategy I have done for that is go roughly in the center of that, and then you basically just have to stand there and keep hitting A for pickup until it jumps in front of you, and then you have to be quick enough to react to that to stop hitting
Hmm.
the A button, or you're going to throw it. And this is kind of an issue with blindfolded in general, and it doesn't come up too much in Ocarina of Time, but when you're holding something over your head, you kind of lose a little bit of your
Oh.
mobility options, right? Rudo and like these chickens are probably maybe like a rock or a bush, but you typically don't need those for
Hmm.
much. But when you have that over your head, you can't do side hops or backflips anymore. So you're kind of limited in your movement. And so I think this route, it just made more sense to struggle with one fish in the fishing pond rather than try and collect all of these chickens, navigate them all to the pen. it could be done, and in theory, it could be faster, but
Mm-hmm.
almost practically, it's never going to be. So
And definitely not marathon safe, I'd imagine.
yeah, no, you'd spend, the variance on the time seems like it would be very high in terms of getting that bottle.
I imagine the difficulty of trying to pick one up and imagining, like you said, a radius of where they'd be. I didn't even consider the fact that once you're holding something, there goes a majority of your movement options, and
Yeah.
I didn't even
Yeah, all
consider
the
that
stuff we
much.
talked about earlier of, like, being able to do all of this stuff, now you just cut, like, most of it out. And you have, like, a really loud thing over your head, so even, like, Link's footsteps, start to be harder to kind of key in on.
Mhm. It was only recently that I started looking back on Ocarina speedruns just because of things like with people like Bubsy and you doing more Zelda stuff, whether it's Majora or Ocarina. And one thing that I noticed was the fact that now everyone can start in Link's house instead of watching a 3 minute, 3.5 minute long intro cutscene where you're just mashing A. So I
Mhm.
like that that's finally been changed because I always thought I understood why it was a rule, but at the same time I thought that was a silly rule to still incorporate for Ocarina speedruns.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. I think there was a discussion on, should we continue to use the intro? Should we, skip the intro? And I think at one point it seemed like the majority was going for skipping the intro, but the idea at the time was, like, keep that time, like, to not have to redo all the previous runs.
Hmm.
So you basically start your timer at like 2 minutes and 51 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of made the point, it's going to suck right now to retime all of those old runs, but it's just going to be so much cleaner moving forward. I think we should do it. And
Hmm.
I think that's ultimately what we did. And I think that's ultimately the best decision that could have been made. So now every run starts at Link's house, every run starts at 0. And it's just an easier method now that we've done it. I mean, I say the mods were really the ones that, like, put in the effort to retime all those old runs, but I
Yeah.
think it has made it, you know, it's just a lot more accessible now, especially for shorter runs like this defeat Ganon blindfolded. It would kind of suck every time I fail the first
Yeah.
minute, to have to go through 3 more minutes of just hitting the A button and B button. So
I never really speedran Ocarina, but I know around 2013 when I was in college, I wanted to at least get good at the child dungeons and get to the Ocarina, similar to
mhm.
like what you did at AGDQ, but without the blindfold. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I didn't like was, oh, if I messed up 10, 15 minutes in, now let me restart and just mash A for 3 whole minutes. And I was playing the English version on the Wii Virtual Console, so I had a little
Mhm.
bit longer for mashing than the
Yeah.
Japanese
Yeah.
version. And I remember
Mhm.
thinking this kind of sucks that every time I want to try this, uh, I'm gonna have to go through this intro.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it's one that, as speedrunning has evolved, we tend to look at some of those older rules and say, does this really still make sense? Should we type of, reevaluate this? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a good reevaluation in the Ocarina of Time community's part.
And then for the 80%, the beginning is mostly get to the Kokiri sword while also collecting rupees, and then
Mhm.
using the river itself to also get rupees, so you can eventually buy the shield and what is also the fishing minigame, correct?
Fish, yeah.
So it's
Yep,
just
the fish.
60 rupees needed to be collected, with 55 before the fishing, and then I believe you guys get the blue rupee in the shop as well in the Kokiri Forest.
There's a couple different Ruby routes you could kind of tweak how you want to collect them, but it's 20 for the fishing and then 40 for the shield. That's like the minimum that's needed.
Do you find that the initial movement is any difficult, or do you just find that backflipping, side hopping, and going through the tunnel to get the sword, and then getting to the spot for the escape is pretty easy at this point?
Um, I feel like getting to that first crawl space is a little tricky because it's kind of really based on a timing of just counting as Link's back walking. Um, So I will miss it sometimes. And typically, if I'm going to miss the crawl space and lose 3 or 4 seconds in the first 30 seconds of the run, I just kind of start it over. So sometimes it takes me a little bit to get that, but most of the rest to get to the escape isn't too bad.
And I've never actually done that the glitch before. I've done I think it's called Navi dive to escape
Yeah.
the forest, but I've never done the other, which you guys do in the run, where I guess you like angle yourself out of a specific way, so that way when you jump slash in the midair, you just clip through the corner of that stone.
Yeah, there's a little corner you can clip through, and you'll just be kind of in the out of bounds water, and then just swim over top of the loading zone there.
Is that something easy to reset, or is it by that point, if it's failed, say you're doing a marathon run, do you just climb onto the stone and wait for Navi to say hey and do the Navi dive?
Yeah, in this case now, a lot of my runs, if I fail that, I don't want to do the backup Navi,
Hmm.
and I'll just reset. But in a marathon setting, yeah, absolutely, I would go for it once, maybe even twice. And if I fail at that point, yeah, then the Navi backup is a wonderful backup to
Yeah,
have.
I remember it being mostly easy as long as you do everything correctly.
Mhm.
And then initially swimming up and getting out of that first little water before diving into the river. Is there any weird movement that Link can do while swimming up, or is it consistent every time he swims up and then you swim out of that little hole?
That one's pretty consistent. For me on Nintendo 64, the Zora's River area lags a lot, so I've
Oh,
tried to mess with like turning Link backwards so that I'm just kind of facing the wall to save a couple of frames. But I was struggling with that because he kind of, as he swims up, it's kind of a corner. He could climb like either edge. If you just come out and you hold it forward, he's always going to climb the right edge or the correct edge. I think it's the right one, but I'll use the word correct because there's left and right. But if I turn there and then swim like backwards against it, it seems like sometimes he'll grab the left one instead.
hmm.
And so I've kind of just decided I'm just going to take the consistency and just hold up and eat the lag. And that's something that I feel like every blindfolded runner kind of has to balance, like
Hmm.
consistency versus speed in these types of things. Like, can I get this 100% of the time and be a second slower? Okay, I'm okay with that. If I'm going to be 80% and it's going to save 5 seconds, maybe runners go for it.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of balance of that type of thing for blindfolded runs specifically.
And then after the river section, is the movement to get to Lake Hylia easy, or is it like slightly difficult and you want to try, I assume you want to try to get it at least somewhat fast before nighttime so you don't accidentally lock onto one of the skeleton kids, whatever they're
Mhm.
called.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. The Hyrule Field, the only thing with Hyrule Field is if you are slightly off in your initial like angle, it is such a big area that kind of propagates by the time you cross the whole field. A slightly wrong angle might be like
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of like a unit of measure. You're vastly different than where you thought you might be. So as long as you get the angle that you want, though, you're gonna end up across the field where you want to be. So it's
And
not too bad.
looking at this from a marathon run perspective, is there a good backup for that, or is that something like, I don't know if I can fix this, let me just restart the run and try this first 2 minutes again, or however long it is?
Um, it would probably depend on how bad the angle was, but if you get like a slightly off angle, it just might mean you need to make a little adjustment to. You're basically trying to get to a ladder is the
Hmm.
next like locked in part of the run to climb up the one ladder to get down to Lake Hylia. So as long as you can make little adjustments, I've found that if I'm going to be quote unquote like wrong or I'm going to be off, I would rather be off to the one side of the ladder because then I can
Hmm.
kind of just side hop and get into the corner that I would need to. It just might take 3 or 4 extra side hops rather than 2 side hops. So, but if you're off the other way, it's kind of more difficult to realize that and kind of turn yourself around and get to the ladder. So there's certain marathon strategies I might take versus like a pure I'm just going for the fastest time if I'm going for the fastest time and I'm not finding the ladder, I'm just gonna reset, you
Yeah.
know.
And then the purpose of Lake Hylia is to first get to the fishing mini game, which you have to pay 20 rupees to do. And
Hmm.
then I'm assuming is there a consistent setup or roughly a consistent setup to always have the lure land near the fish that you guys are going for and just hope that it takes the bait?
Yeah, there's a setup that I think both Bubsy and I would use, that I want to say like 90% of the time we'll lock on to the fish that we want, and the other time it just Navi won't fly over to him for whatever reason. It might just be RNG. He's already like moved, or I'm not sure exactly, but if that happens, you can make a quick backup. But then, yeah, the hardest part of the fishing is probably balancing how much you want to play with that lure to like try and entice the fish
Hmm.
versus um, how much you're okay reeling him in, because obviously the closer to you that he bites, the less reeling time you have. But if you get too close, then you're just going to pick the bobber, like then the bait back up out of the pond and have to cast again. So usually my strategy is like bob pretty aggressively for like 10 bobs, like get it to that point, and then if he bites anywhere after that, I'm pretty okay with it. um, Once I get to like 20 though, I start to get nervous that he's not even paying attention to the bait anymore, and I'll kind of just reel it in pretty quick after that and try again. But usually around that like 10 bob, I have found is a pretty sweet spot for me of balancing, trying to keep his attention, trying to get him to bite it, and then I reel for a little bit, but not the whole way. If he bites right away, there's really nothing you can do. Like you take it obviously, but it does mean you're losing time just from reeling him in.
And then it's assuming he doesn't take the bait the first time or however many times it takes, does it always go back to roughly the same spot so you just have to cast the line again?
Yeah, you haven't you as long as you pulled it in and didn't move Link, like he's going to be casting in basically the same spot. The fish is going to reset to pretty much the same spot. I think at least in the area that line will reach him. I've never had one where like he moved back but wasn't close enough to where that first cast goes, and then I'm not pulling him in again. So I think you do have some retry opportunities. You just kind of have to be careful with it.
But if I remember correctly, if the fish grabs the line and then escapes, the only way to try to catch it is to leave the area and pay another 20 rupees to try again, right?
Yeah, it's the worst case scenario for a run. It would be an instant reset if I was just doing runs for like a time. In a marathon setting, I would, as you said, leave, come back, spend the extra 20, have to farm more money
Mm.
later. But there's really nothing you can do once he bites the line and then escapes. He's not just going to go back to his spot. I think maybe eventually he would after like 5 or 10 minutes or something, he might come back. I haven't tested enough, but it's not worth it. It's worth it to just leave and reset and try reset the pond, and that will kind of respawn him there.
And then with the once it takes the bite, and since it's different of when it takes the bite, and you're holding down or down left on the line, whenever Link pulls up the fish, is he does he always look back at the same direction he was when he casted the line, or is it slightly random every time he picks up the fish where he's looking?
That's going to be slightly different. The fish can be in a number of spots as it's kind of jumping around and you're catching it. So I think a couple runners do a couple different things. I think I use switch targeting. So every time I hit Z, I can let go of Z and it will stay locked on. Whereas a lot of people who use the hold, where you have to keep holding Z to keep locked onto the thing. Um, so if you use that, I think Bubsy came up with a way to target another specific fish and then release the target, and then that kind of aligns him to that fish. Whereas I can't easily release my target in that
Mm-hmm.
sense. So I use there's like one entry where like water comes into the pond, like that hole over by the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of rocks around. That actually makes noise, like the water creak trickling into the pond. Um, so I'll just go into see up mode after I catch the fish and try and center that noise, and then
Oh,
I know roughly I'm facing that way, and then I can make my move to exit the pond.
yeah. I remember seeing your current best uh world record time for it, and I saw the C up, and I was like, I know this has a purpose. I just can't figure
Mhm.
out what the purpose
Yeah.
was. I didn't realize that. I know about that spot you're talking about. I didn't realize that it also made a unique noise. So that's pretty cool to learn about.
Yeah. Most times, like in a blindfolded Ocarina of Time, if C up is the move or like first person is the move, it's usually to try and orient
Hmm.
some type of noise. And usually it's to like the center. In that way, you know you're at least facing. I can't say that's super accurate. There's times
Hmm.
where I'm off to the left, there's times where I'm off to the right a little bit. I usually make an adjustment. The way I swim out to the pond or to the guy to get the prize, I know how many strokes of water that takes, and if my angle is slightly off, it will be more or less. So if
Okay.
it's more, that means I was initially facing too far to the left. If it's less, it's kind of too far to the right. And then once I know that, I can make pretty quick adjustments kind of on the fly to get to where I need to go to talk to him.
I remember in your AGDQ run, because you did the child dungeons, I think there was a time where you were trying to find the warp point, and you did the
Mm,
up C as well to try to look at it that way. I didn't even
yeah.
consider also, because of you having different angles from your C up in the pond, that's pretty smart of, if I swim too little, then I know where I am. If I swim too much, I know where I am. If I swim in between those, then I know where I am. I think that's the coolest thing about blindfolded speedruns that most people won't know, is all the backup strategies or slightly adjustments that everyone has to prepare for, because of different things that can happen. And so you got to be prepared for as much as you can, while also memorizing everything and executing everything.
Yeah, it's something that if you were a first time viewer, or even if you were a long time viewer, and you're just kind of casually watching, you see me exit the pond, and it's like I might not even say anything because I'm focused, and it's like, how did he just know that he had to go back like an extra
Hmm.
5 steps there? I saw him do the fishing last time, and he didn't do that, and it's like, yeah, well, clearly he's cheating, right? It's just
Yeah.
like that's where a lot of people go, but it's like, well, no, like you said, I have a lot of little adjustments that I'm making based on the things that I'm hearing, things that most people don't think about. They're not
Hmm.
thinking about he took 14 strokes in the water versus 9. What does that mean? You
Yeah.
know, but that's always what's going through my head. There is I'm counting the strokes, and some people do other counts. Like I know other games, and some people are better at counting like beats in the music. And it's like you wouldn't know if you're just kind of casually picking it up for the first time as a viewer. How did he know to turn there? Like it looked so random. But
Yeah.
the runner themselves, it's like it was the fourth beat of the you know the music in the background, so I knew I was in the right spot, type of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of little things like that that we haven't really touched on. Obviously, Ocarina of Time, we talked about the big things, the
Hmm.
key movements you can make, but yeah, there's a lot of little intricate things as well that I think, like you said, are some of the more um, fascinating parts of putting together a blindfolded run.
And that's for my own experience as well. Of There are moments of games that I've tried where, because I heard A, I know where I am for B to do this movement, and then when I went back to the footage, I'm like, dang, I know what I did there to fix that. But if I was watching this for the first time, I would have thought that's suspicious looking, like you
Yeah.
said, of oh, that's
Mhm.
obviously cheating when it's. And that's why I like. That's one of the biggest thing that I like about AGDQ or GDQ in general is, should you have commentators who are also knowledge on the game, they tend to explain out loud what the runner is thinking or looking for. And so if you're a first time viewer, you're like, oh, I didn't know about that. That's cool. Whereas watching
Mhm.
personal best attempts, or just how fast did someone beat this Ocarina of Time blindfolded, and they watched the video for the first time. I don't know how they did that, and there was no explanation, and I can't think of anything, therefore cheating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to I don't want to go on a too far of a side tangent, but like my first videos up, it's like YouTube 2008, 2009. I've got like my laptop turned around, pointed at me, and then behind me is like
Mm-hmm.
the TV. And I'm listening to the TV audio. So the TV's on. I'm facing away from it, obviously, but people are always going to come up with their
Mm-hmm.
theories, right? Like there's a mirror on the wall that I can see, that's reflecting. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at the mirror that's showing the TV behind me, or someone is just off to the side with the real controller that's playing, and I'm just like pretending to play the game. Like it doesn't seem like it matters what setup you use. People are gonna come up with a crazy theory to try and disprove it. And even like it's like finally I felt like when I did the AGDQ run, it's like here I am in a live room. There's
Yeah.
30 people behind me. There's 500 over off to the side. Like, can you believe me now?
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, it's unfortunately a part of, I think, blindfolded speedrunning that we just kind of have to bounce off of, and the best we can do is share the knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
share how we explain how we came up to that conclusion. And I think that's really the only way you can get through to some of that um,
Yeah.
accusatory comments.
And that's kind of the main idea that I had for this behind the mask idea is not only just to talk about the game, but to share the knowledge that someone wouldn't even think of. And even me, who hasn't really speedrun Ocarina of Time, but I've watched some of it and played the game casually a lot. Even then, like the fishing thing, I'm like, I still don't know what he's doing, and I trust
Mhm.
that you have a method, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if someone thought that was suspicious, only to then learn, that's what the method is. It makes sense, and now I
Hmm.
can use that knowledge to further verify. Because it would, if you were faking it, it would just be as easy to just turn towards the fisherman dude and just run towards him. But instead,
Hmm.
you have to Z up. You're listening for a thing. You're adjusting by how Link's swimming, and it's a lot more than just that you're playing the game blindfolded and doing strategies that you would not do otherwise visually. But because most
Hmm.
people aren't playing blindfolded, they don't even consider all these nuance or little ideas. It's just why are they doing that? That's weird, and also it's weird how they made it work.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that it ends up working sometimes is like even the runner might be surprised a little bit, because there are like, ah, man, I'm kind of lost, but I think I'm here, and
Hmm.
you just kind of wing it a little bit, and it works out. And yeah, there's ones like that too where it probably does look quite odd,
Hmm.
especially if I vocalized. I said like, "Uh-oh," or I said, I'm stuck," or and then boom, you get it. So
And then moving on from the fishing pond, I initially thought that Navi made a noise when you went above the bottle, and I don't know if that's true or not, but do you count your strokes in the water, or is that the case where once you're near the bottle, Navi makes a noise and you just swim towards it?
I think you could use either. I typically will count the strokes because I think I could probably start the dive just before Navi pops up. But if I would lose count, or I'm kind of sidetracked in my brain, and I'm not thinking, I think it's 40 for me. I typically count to 40. Um, but if I would lose count, I just say, okay, I'll wait for Navi, and I know I'll get it then. And really, it's just kind of getting aligned to the bottle and then just swimming straight to it, and that works out pretty well.
And then after getting the bottle, going inside Zora's domain, I'm assuming that those pots will always drop the what is the Deku nuts that you guys collect.
Yeah, there's a Deku stick and Deku nuts in those two pots, and if you would need more of them, if you were doing a marathon and you wanted some extra, you can enter the shop, come back out, do the setup to break them again, go back into the shop, kind of
Okay.
however many you needed.
Hmm.
Same with the rubies. Like if you would get unlucky with the fishing and you had to spend the extra 20, there's a pot right outside the shop, Zora shop, that has 5, so you can kind of keep regenerating it to get your money back. It's a little bit of time, but it's probably a good source of replenishing that 20 that you would have spent.
That's pretty convenient having pots that can cover all three of those bases.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, yeah.
one thing that I don't actually know how that works, because I remember the fishing mini game normally is supposed to reward you the heart piece if you catch a certain fish.
Oh.
What's
Mhm.
causing the game to give you the golden scale instead?
Yeah, so there's a lot of actors in Ocarina of Time that could kind of give two things. Typically that's like child or adult, but it might depend on like what you hand them. So like as an example, King Zora has this issue too, where you could get the next adult trade thing. Like if you give him the prescription, he will give you the eyeball frog. So you
Hmm.
can get the eyeball frog from King Zora, but if you melt him, he will reward you with the Zora tunic. So there's two different prizes you can get, and there's ways that you kind of delay the interaction, or you kind of override it. I don't know the exact like coding behind what makes it work, but in this case with the fisherman, as a child, like you said, you're supposed to get the heart piece. As an adult, you're supposed to get the gold scale. But if you enter the water and you're in the like the deep water, and then you hold Z and you keep Z as you kind of exit the water, there's some type of like state that's not updating or not refreshing or not changing or something, that when you go and talk to him, it doesn't give you the heart piece prize. It autos to the gold scale prize. So yeah, that is a glitch that we kind of glossed over quickly. But yeah, you get the gold scale, which you don't actually need the gold scale dive meter to get to this bottle,
Hmm.
but getting the silver scale is basically out of the question in
Hmm.
this run. So gold scale is just using this glitch is just easier um, to be able to dive deep enough to get the bottle.
Do the fishing mini game, use the scale to get the
Mhm.
bottle and to get in Dora's domain. Get
Yeah.
inside,
Yep.
collect those items that we talked about from the pots, give King Zora the bottle so then you have access to the bottle.
Yeah,
to,
that's the biggest thing
uh,
about that bottle is all the other bottles, it's like it's just a bottle. But that one you can't really do anything with till it's emptied from King Zora. So yeah.
and I know from a speedrunner sense you probably want to go fast, but from a viewer sense, because of King Zora being so meme heavy, I think as a spectator it's just fun, even for live events, being able to just sit through the weep sound.
Yeah, it is funny that that ended up in the run here. So it gives everybody the weep memes. So we'll take those.
And then the collecting of the fish doesn't matter what goes inside the bottle as long as it's something that you can drop and capture to do the wrong warp glitch, correct?
Um, yes, but the fish is the best for multiple reasons. In both sided speedruns and blindfolded speedruns, the bugs is typically more accessible. There are more places that have the bugs, but the bugs kind of when you drop them will scurry.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't always just immediately swing in the same spot you're standing in. Which for sighted speedruns and blindfolded speedruns, your position is often very very precise of the trick you're about to do, like a wrong
Yeah.
warp. So the fish is just super nice in that you can backflip or get into the spot that you want and then just drop it and immediately catch it. There's a chance, we call it like fish troll, where the fish can kind of flop a little bit away, and then there are some backups you can do to catch it. But I'd say 90+% of the time, you don't have to move. You can just drop and catch. Whereas the bugs, it's much less likely that that's going to happen.
Maybe it's just another moment of my brain tricking myself. I always thought you could just immediately swing and catch the bugs. I didn't. Maybe the times that it didn't work out, I just caught it real fast and didn't think anything of it. So I didn't know that that was more of an issue than the
Yeah,
fish.
yeah.
Uh,
In this run, it's very convenient. Right when
mhm.
you the King Zora, you give him the bottle. There's fish in that spot, so it works. There are certain categories of sighted speedruns where they kind of have to go out of their way a little bit because they want to get a fish versus just taking the bugs. So it works out for us here.
Yeah, I know with the sided Kakariko route, they would immediately go for a rock that had bugs, and so I just thought
Yeah.
as long as it's something you can recapture, so Link's holding the bottle,
Hmm.
that is nice that the fish is on the blindfolded side, just right there for a little more convenience. And
Hmm.
then save, quit, restart, load back the save. You go into the shop to get the shield, talk to Mido. Uh, I believe this is intentional, where you guys are up against the wall, and as you're back walking, you have your shield out, so that way, when you hear something clank the shield, the Deku Baba, you know exactly where you are to attack it.
Yeah, that was a really neat little strategy that I don't think I thought of that. I don't know if that was Bubsy or Nico or somebody else in the community, but um, obviously you could just navigate yourself to be in a position next to the Baba. But a quick way to do that, like you said, backwalk with your shield out, wait for him to kind of smack into it, and then you're stopped perfectly in his range to attack him. So yeah, really clever strategy use there of the shield.
And then you guys typically defeat two of them, right? You get the one stick from Zora's Domain, and you collect two more from the enemies to have a three total.
Yeah, 3 is enough to do the run. I think, could it be done with 2? I mean, you might be able to do it with 2 or something, but typically you're going to use the sticks on Ganon is what you're trying to do, because Ganon's really only damaged from the Master Sword, or for some reason they did. Well, I guess it's not for some reason. They didn't code Deku sticks because they never thought you'd have them there.
hmm
So it's actually really powerful against him.
And then inside the Deku Tree, I'm sure I could look this up to see how this works. I just never have the fact that you guys do something with the stick, and then you run towards a web and just crouch stab, and it just lights the web on fire. How does that glitch work?
Yeah, so the run, typically there are the Deku Tree is crazy. There's so many things you can do. It's insane that it's the first dungeon, and yet there's so much going on in the Deku Tree. Um, Typically blindfolded, we're just going to eat there's a cutscene on the vines that like Navi says, like, these are vines, you can climb them.
hmm
Usually we just listen to that. You can skip it, but um, it tends to not work out because there's other vines over by the map that you would typically hit blindfolded. And then there's the door to the slingshot. We do try and do, Navi again wants to tell you this is a door, this is how you open it. But if you kind of side hop and then hit A on the right frame, like as you enter the door, you can open the door before she gets to you. So we try that, get the slingshot, and then yeah, the trick that I use on Nintendo 64 is slightly different. It's there are a few 1.0 version 1.0 glitches in Ocarina of Time. Very little, but this happens to be one of them. It can still be done on the Wii VC or other versions, but it requires a little bit more. But basically, it's called quick put away. Essentially, what you're doing, you have like a weapon out, like the stick, in your hands, and then the A button, like the action button, says like, it would in English, but it says put away, which basically takes that stick in your hands and just removes it. If you interrupt that in a certain way, whether that's I think on VC they have to like get hit or attacked by something. For me, I can just kind of hit the bottle button, or it could also be done with Deku Nuts, but essentially you're interrupting that put away so that it's like not finished doing that action in the code. And so you're in this state then where the put away is still kind of happening. And from there, if you take the stick back out, or I guess the stick doesn't actually leave your hands, it stays in your hands, but it's quote unquote put away. If you jump slash and like break it on a wall in a specific way, that's where the magic happens, because there's something about like doing that attack but being in the put away state that causes you to have a ton of like different attacks stored, if you will. And then we have, just to go on a quick sidebar, it's called power crouch stab. They never coded like an attack damage for power crouch stab. So if you shield, no Z, you just shield, he's down, and then you hit B and you stab forward. That attack will always have the same power and like source of your previous attack. So anybody could try this. If you would just get the hammer, swing the hammer at nothing, and then you go to a rock or a boulder and you crouch and stab it, it's gonna blow up the rock as though you had damaged it with the hammer. The quick put away like attack has a whole bunch of attacks. One of them is like attacking with Din's fire for some reason. And that's why when we crouch stab the web, it just burns the web. It has like Din's fire. I think it's some type of, I don't know if it's bow, like arrows, or slingshot seeds. It has one of those as well. I think it's the bow. It has like several other like attack properties to it. But the key one for us is the fire source to burn the webs. So yeah, I do that trick, which I don't actually know 100%. I got it. There's no, well, there are certain visual cues that let me know I didn't get it, but visual cues, audio cues that I didn't get it. And then I kind of just have to go and hope that I did it correctly. But I know once I burn the web, there's kind of a setup to align myself to get back to the web on the first floor. So that's kind of the whole spiel of what that trick is.
I always thought for some reason because of I saw you guys messing with the stick, hitting the wall. I just thought, oh, there's some code that makes you have like an invisible stick on fire. I didn't realize it's oh no, it's actually Din's fire that's
Pretty
burning
sure
the
it's
web.
Din fire. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And then
Yeah.
after that web is burned, you guys do a specific movement to be at a specific spot for the Deku Baba. And I've never done this. I don't know if it's counted as a glitch or not, but where you guys roll forward and somehow it like catapults you down the hole at the right direction, so that way you guys can skip the second half of the Deku tree.
Yeah. Yeah. So normally you'd be in the basement of Deku Tree after you break that web and you'd have to loop all the way around. Um, this setup, people have different ways to get to this Baba. It's pretty lenient, but the timing is still kind of tight. The position, I'd say not so much. The timing is pretty tight, especially because you don't actually get to see the Baba about to attack you. But yeah, if you do a roll in Ocarina of Time and like near the end of the roll, you get attacked, like something hits your shield. There's a couple frames where you can side hop or backflip, and it's going to give you a ton of negative speed to do what we call a mega flip or a mega side hop. In this case, mega side hop has a couple more frames, and it gets you to have a bunch of speed as you're going down the hole into the basement. And like you said, you exit that hole, you still have enough speed, you land on the upper part. And from there, there's another web. You still have the power of like the Din's fire, so you can break that web too, and then end up in the basement, like the true basement.
And then the Deku Scrubs to me looks harder to deal with blindfolded than even Queen Goma.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, those three. There's, I think in my GDQ run, I like died and I did them out of order. I really struggled with them there. And it can be disorienting. Like you've got these three things attacking you as you're trying to reflect their attacks in the right order. There's decent setups where usually as I'm falling, I've positioned myself in a way that I'm pretty aligned with the middle one, but it's in reviewing my attempts, my runs, I never seem to land at the exact same spot. It's always just a little bit off. So it's another one of those areas where you try and make some adjustments and kind of hope that it works out. Usually getting like them in the right order isn't so bad. The camera afterwards I find to be very problematic because it depends like how you approach that third one. He talks for a certain amount of time, he kind of bounces off. Link spins around a little bit to sometimes face the door but not always facing the door. The camera spins sometimes a different way. Like that cutscene isn't very consistent. And so sometimes even after you've cleared the three of them, getting to Goma's door can actually be the hardest part of that basement, because if you don't guess right of what was going to happen with the camera or the way Link was facing, you're kind of just off into the middle of the room. So
I didn't know that. I thought he always faced towards the door. That the camera, the cutscene faced towards the door. I didn't realize that there's another a luck element involved after dealing with the three scrubs.
Yeah. There's I'm sure there you could potentially normalize that, but I haven't found a way to get that to be 100% consistent. So usually my like 70 excuse me 70% or so, I'll take it. And if I have a couple of backups there, but if the camera or link was not doing, one of maybe two or three things, um, the run might just be losing a minute or two as I
Yeah.
stumble around that basement for that door.
The only thing that I could see help with that room is, I'm guessing, using the water to your advantage to know, hey, if I'm touching the water, I'm probably facing this way, so then maybe either go up against the wall and use the wall to get to the door, or I don't know, or
Yeah.
maybe the vines in the water could help. I don't know.
I usually anticipate I'm near the left wall, and if I start to hear the water splashing, I know generally that's where I'm at. And then from there, usually I can kind of turn and get back to the door. Although even then, it's tough because there's like two pillars next to the door, which kind
Yeah.
of bump out a little bit. So you kind of need to know that you're bumping out, and you need to like curl around them. And slashing there is like some of the wall, it seems like it clangs, but then there's also parts that do like the wooden clink or whatever you would call it. So yeah, it's a tricky spot if to get lost in.
And I believe I saw you and Bubsy are both doing this, where by the time you got to the Deku Scrubs, you had already intentionally taken some damage for the Queen Goma strategy later, but now you're fighting them with like a heart or half a heart. And to me, it's like when you have three things shooting at me, blindfolded with half a heart, I'd be nervous about getting hit.
Yeah. The point of the Goma fight is to kill her and be KO'd at the same time. So kind of throughout the Deku tree, you're taking damage, and typically by the time you get to those scrubs at the bottom, you want to be at half of heart. So any attack from them that hits you is going to kill you. So yeah, it is a little risky. It would be a little safer to have a little more health, and then just on the last scrub, let
Mm.
him attack you a couple times, or you get to Goma and like let her attack you a couple of times. As long as you're kind of keeping track, it's not too dangerous. But yeah, the idea is to enter Goma's room with half a heart. That's another thing with the not only Link in the camera. We were just talking about getting to the door. That last scrub drops a heart
Oh yeah,
like
that's right.
on his spot. So I also have a move to like try. I want to get to the door, but often the direct path to the door is going to give me more health. So I actually try and make like a move to get
Okay.
around it as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I think in your PB, I saw you side hop and then side hop back to where you started, and I was wondering,
Hmm.
I forgot about that heart that dropped from the Deku Scrub, so now that little movement makes more sense as well. And then
Yeah.
for Goma, after killing her, are you not able to save, quit, restart, and then get back into her room, or is it just faster to die the same time as you kill her?
It is faster, but there is a reason that we don't do that. And you can't do that. We are setting up to do the wrong warp, very famous warp in the Goma's room to get to near the end of the game. The way that one works, it involves what the last cutscene that you watched was. And so when
Oh.
you enter the Deku tree, there's kind of like it like pans over, the camera pans around and like kind of shows a little bit. It says
Mm-hmm.
like inside the Deku tree pops up
Mm-hmm.
on the screen. That cutscene, that one works. The intro cutscene where like Link is on Epona and riding around Hyrule Field before you press start, that cutscene doesn't work on its
Okay.
own.
I didn't realize that
So
that intro messed that up.
yeah, the intro, it's the cutscene
Mm-hmm.
that will ruin the wrong warp. Now there is a way to save it. The intro cut. This is so weird. I couldn't explain why this works. The intro cutscene works if you are in Link's house and you pause the game. Now it works. So if you would like fail in Deku Tree, or like you would have to save warp there, you can leave Link's or leave the Deku Tree, save again, go back to Link's house, pause, and then as long as you go to Deku Tree from there, you'd be fine. The wrong warp would
Okay.
work. So there's very specific components that make it work and make it not work. And so the enter Deku cutscene does work, and so that's why we death warp there versus save warping.
Okay. I didn't realize there was a backup to that, but I just assumed the reason for the death warp was because I know when you enter Goma's room, there's like that stone door that drops, which prevents you from
Yeah.
getting to the door to leave the chamber. So I just thought the death warp was just so you reset the room. I didn't realize that that tiny cutscene that most people probably forget that's even in the game of, like you said, panning around inside the Deku Tree
Mm-hmm.
affected the wrong warp. It's been a long
Yeah.
time since I've watched anything on how the wrong warp works because that was so long ago when that became a big thing. And then you had the Deku Nut bottle manipulation thing becoming the big next thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
finally beating the game in 6 minutes because of coding and wrong warping to the credits. Over
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
I've learned more about the newer stuff and then forgot about the older stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. The cutscenes matter there. There are ways you can actually clip back through that stone door
Hmm.
and then kill Goma, and then you just walk back through the door. But blindfolded, I think that would be a little ambitious to try and get that to work. That's tough even for sighted runs. It involves manipulating Goma in such a way um, that I think that would be challenging.
And then for the wrong warp itself, probably the biggest glitch in the run, I know
Mm-hmm.
it has to do with using the bottle to make one of your items, I don't know if it's a sword or something, play as an ocarina so that way when the game is trying to trigger the cutscene of you warping out, you cancel it. Is canceling it timing dependent, or can you cancel it at any point of once it starts that little noise of you warping out, essentially?
You can't cancel it at any time. There is a window. It's a fairly big window. I'm not too worried about hitting that window. There was a time where, in like 3 or 4 runs in a row, I was just a little late, so I had to make a little adjustment and be earlier, and I was getting it again. But yeah, so the trick is called ocarina items. So typically in boss rooms, you can't use the ocarina. It's
Hmm.
grayed out. Like they didn't want you to be able to warp there. Um, but we can. The whole point of getting the bottle was for this moment. Um, when you get the bottle in your hand, and then in midair, you press the bottle button, and then before you land, you press another button like the sword or like Deku Stick, something like that. He will actually pull out and play that as an ocarina. And if you position yourself in just a way that you do that on the edge of the blue warp, the blue warp is trying to take you away. It has a timer that starts counting up, and it wants to execute a bunch of things. One is, giving you like the stone, and one is starting a cutscene that shows like after the Deku Tree.
Hmm.
So you've interrupted that, and now you have control of Link again. Yeah, there's a window where you start moving again. So you blindfolded, you position yourself with the backflips and moves to get to the edge of that warp. And then after, you have to do a precise moves again, and you have to do it in kind of an exact time. There's certain windows that, like, we're throwing Deku Nuts and we're like moving sideways and doing
Hmm.
side hops to get back to the door. Because like once you get back around the door, the timer freezes. Essentially, the blue warp is not really in the game's like memory anymore. It's off screen, out of sight, out of mind. So the timer's stopped, and we just move in such a way that opens the door, that kind of turns the camera just enough to keep the timer going up. And if the timer and you going through the door happen on the same time, the warp stuff is still going to happen. You're still going to get the stone, and it's going to give you that cutscene. But what it's going to do is, instead of the cutscene being from Goma's room plus X amount, it's going to be from the Deku basement plus X amount. And it just so happens that Deku basement plus X amount, X being like whatever the cutscene like data is, those combinations add up to being in a Ganon's tower collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So we just end up there if we do the trick right. And so blindfolded or sighted, it's not too much different. It's just a matter of moving to the door in the right kind of time.
And so if you get to the door too fast or a little too late, does it just do the normal cutscene, or is it adding or not adding as much to whatever the internal value is and trigger something completely different?
Yeah, so if you get there too early, the timer won't have executed that give the stone and start the cutscene yet. You'll just go through the door, and so
Oh.
you'll be back in Deku basement, and you can try again. That's not the end of the world. If you're a frame late, though, those things are going to execute before you get through to the to the next Deku basement, and it's just going to take you in and start the cutscene, and that's
Okay.
basically run over. Like you'd have
Mm.
to reset, leave, go back to Link's house and do the pause to try it again at that point. So yeah, that's probably one of the worst like things that could happen.
I do find it funny that I think I remember seeing something of a table showing the warp values and how the tower collapse is just like right next to the Deku tree for some reason.
Yeah, we got very lucky in the sense that the first dungeon has one, a way to do this, and two, the way that it works happens to go to the end of the game past Ganondorf, so we don't need the light arrows. Like it was incredible that it worked out that way.
And then I noticed that I know you guys do some sort of clip and it utilizes the fairy slingshot.
Mhm.
Was there a route before where you guys did the escape normally and then the slingshot was just found later to help skip part of the tower?
Yeah, so the original kind of way of doing the rest of the run was you just go to the outer collapse, and any outer collapse loading zone is going to trigger like the Zelda coming down in the crystal. You're at the top, and then the whole collapse sequence kind of happens. And that is very challenging. There's a
Mhm.
lot of narrow corridors that have like you fall off and you void. There's Stalfos on the way down.
Mm.
There's a bunch of falling rocks that can like mess up your angle, take too much damage. So that was very challenging. And in fact, my decision in back in 2015, I was going to submit either Chow Dungeons blindfolded or this run blindfolded, and the collapse was just too chaotic for me to feel confident. So I ended up doing the Chow Dungeons one. So it was that much of like a deterrent for what I was doing at the time.
I didn't realize there was already a route for defeat Ganon blindfolded back then.
I mean, it would have basically been this up.
Hmm.
Everything would have been essentially the same up to this point until this collapse part. So it really did make it, I think, a lot smoother for blindfolded runs. But at some point, I don't even know when last. It might have even been like 5 years ago ish. We found like an extra way to clip through certain angles, which with the triple slash. Like if you keep tapping B, like he's gonna do slash slash, and then he kind of does like a more,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say more powerful, but a more like pronounced slash across his body. That one has enough momentum if you like clang off of something that it can push him back through certain walls. So what we're doing here in that room, there is a corner like that that we can triple slash, and then you pull out the slingshot to like cancel your momentum and get him to actually fall through the clipped port. Otherwise, I think he just pops back into
Oh,
frame.
okay.
Um, so unfortunately, this has a lot of very precise inputs, and Ocarina of Time is a very precise game, but we have a lot of very precise ways around it.
Hmm.
One of them is pause buffering, is what it's called. So in the pause menu, when you unpause, you can actually hit certain inputs. And in that unpause lag before like the game kind of refreshes, uh, the game will accept your inputs.
Hmm.
So you can hit B or bottle or any type of C item on an exact visual frame that you want to do these very precise tricks. This one with the triple slash has a couple of audio cues. You can kind of hear the sword clanging. There's one where you have to advance the frames until the sword clangs, which is tough because visually you can see if you're pausing again too quick, it won't advance to the next frame. So you're kind of pausing at just the right moment to catch it 1 or 2 frames later. Typically you want to do like 1 frame. And blindfolded, you don't know if you're actually advancing or not. So you're just kind of hoping you're getting close to the key frame and you hear him clang the sword on the wall. That's the first one. And then it's like, okay, now I can change my inputs and I'm looking for another sword clang. And I pause to that. Then the hardest part is you have to, after that second clang, you have to advance 1 more frame and do 1 more input. And then you just have to know that you got it. You either get it or you don't. You don't know. You are hopeful that you did because it has to happen. You have to get 1 more, and there's no more audio for it. So you kind of get a feel for it as you get used to pausing it, but you basically have to do the last part, the clip itself, with the hope that you got to that frame. So there's that 1 frame that's there's just no audio cue for it. And if you fail, it's like in a marathon, you kind of can maybe move yourself in the room and get it set up and try again. It's not that risky, but there are rocks in that room that will burn your shield. So you do have to be careful a little bit. But yeah, you can essentially keep trying it till you would get it. Unfortunately, there are some pause buffering that there are just no audio cues for. It's just you have to know that you're there and go for it. So that's how that one works with the clip.
I was gonna ask about if the boulders burn the wooden shield, just because I've never been in that tower before as young Link, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we need the shield for the fight at the end on Ganon. So,
and he's able to kill Link in 1 hit, regardless of full health or not. Correct?
yeah, he's gonna do 3 hearts of damage, no matter what. So any hit on Ganon is gonna be an instant death, and that actually sends you back to the top of the tower. So you could do the like we talked about the collapse at that point, but honestly, it's probably better to still reset and do the wrong warp and do this slingshot clip again. So,
and then for the Ganon fight itself, is the Deku Nuts hurting him, or is it just causing him to react so you guys can hit him a specific way?
I think Deku Nuts do damage in the first phase. So most things in the first phase do like 1 damage, but then we talked about the Master Sword or the Deku Stick have more power. So typically it's 2 Deku Nuts. I think he has 10 health in the first phase. 2 Deku Nuts does 2 damage, and then a Deku Stick Jump Slash does 8, or is it 4? It might be 8. It might be the full power of like the Master Sword, which would be kind of crazy. Because usually it's not that powerful, but
Yeah.
I think it is in this case. I think it's 10 total health. So yeah, the Deku Nuts are to kind of it's surprising how wide the Deku Nut like radius. It's almost like a grenade. You don't think of it as like exploding that way, but its radius is huge. So it's a really nice way to get those first couple hits on him and kind of freeze him. So it does both purposes. It will kind of lock him into the spot, and then he'll reset and do his attack again. And it also does damage.
And then it's just to get to the Master Sword. And I like the strategy that I see you guys use, where you guys block a hit and then just jump slash 3 times. And I'm assuming it's safe to do. It doesn't always hit him, but is that something that's just always safe to do?
It's pretty safe. Yeah, there's using the Z targeting, you're kind of always locked onto his face. I think there's some risk when you hit his tail. You kind of want to get a little bit away from him and turn and target again and set the shield up, which can be a little dicey if you don't get the turn right or you're not far enough away and he starts another attack really quick. But typically, if you can get a little bit far away, turn, target him again, then the shield getting up, I don't know that I've had one where I'm expecting that shield up and I've lined it up the way I want, and he still gets me from like the side or something.
Yeah.
Usually you don't know exactly where you're rolling to or running to at that point. The arena is pretty big.
Mhm.
I think there was one or two times where I like run into like one of the like debris
Yeah.
pieces. But yeah, for the most part, that's a pretty safe strategy. Um, we've kind of talked about, can we get a setup where it's similar to the first phase, where you just kind of side hop under his feet,
Mhm.
which would actually save a lot of time, because it is a little bit slow to kind of run away, wait with your shield, wait till he attacks, do the like 3 jump slashes again. It'd be nice to just like side hop slash, side hop back, side hop slash. So that's kind of still being looked into to save some time. But yeah, the shielding kind of in the arena is fairly consistent.
And then after you've done enough damage to the tail, does it put Link in the same exact spot after the cutscene of Zelda trying to stun him?
Yeah, no, I think when that cutscene happens, I don't know exactly how the actors shift or move around, but I'm pretty sure the Ganon goes right to the center of the arena, and then you and Zelda are always placed in the exact same spots. So every single time that cutscene ends, it's going to be the same move to Ganon from there,
Oh,
no
that's
matter
good.
how the fight went. So
That's good.
yeah, the first phase is a little dicey. It can be if you don't do it in the exact way. Your trek to the Master Sword might be different. So
Mhm.
there was one where I actually got the first phase done. I was like totally lost, but then unfortunately I just couldn't find the Master Sword because I didn't do it in the way I was, lined up to get the setup for it.
Does Ganon get back up if you take too long, or does he just wait until you get the Master Sword?
I thought at a certain point he gets back up. I don't know how that works with like his health, if it's just one more hit and he's down again, or if you have to do like the whole first section again. I'm not 100% sure myself.
And overall, would you say that this game, I guess, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being easy, 5 being extremely hard, what would you say that this game falls under for blindfolded speedruns?
Um, I mean, I'd put it at like a 2. Honestly, there's obviously it being a 3D game, it invites a lot of challenges, but man, just the things we've talked about in this call today, the things that you are capable of in this game to maneuver and move around, the sounds, the movement, everything together, it really does make it a very strong blindfolded game. I think a lot of people could pick it up and learn pretty quickly to do certain things, at least navigate through certain areas without much practice. Like you can kind of just pick it up and theory craft your own way of a setup, and at that point it's just remembering what you did. So
And
I think I think
it sounds like it has a fair amount of backup strategies as well, which is always good to have.
mhm.
The
Yeah,
two,
getting into certain corners, aligning to certain walls, like you can almost always do that, get back into a corner and start again or do something again. So yeah, very, very forgiving in a lot of ways.
the two things that sound the hardest to me, and it's probably just because I haven't tried them before, is the wrong warp and the what you've talked about, the clip in the Ganon Tower.
Hmm.
Because I haven't done anything in the game that required the frame buffering. I've
Yeah,
done
that is
some
very.
I've done some fun stuff like make all my items bottles, play the hammer as a flute. I've done the infinite sword glitch, but that's the extent that I've done for glitches in that game. It's just the simple,
Mhm.
silly stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some very precise things that would need to be done for this run in particular, but um, Ocarina of Time has a lot of tools for you to kind of overcome those things. So yeah, I would rank it, not the easiest, but I'd put it on the easier side of games if you are interested in picking up Blindfolded. I think it's a good one to dive into.
And the leaderboards, it's I think like the fifth or sixth most ran game. Blindfolded leaderboards, the most ran game blindfolded.
Hmm.
And Ocarina being so popular as it is, and speed ran like one of the most speed ran games out there. I think the trying to find out how to do certain things, the information out there is far easier than probably most games where you might pick up a different game and it's very little to no information. You just have to figure things out. Whereas Ocarina, it's like, well, this person does this clip this way, this person does this way, or this person explained it this way, and I think the
Mhm.
resources out there probably helps it as well.
Yeah, there's a ton. It depends, obviously the run in category we talked about defeat Ganon, but there's so many other things in this game you could ultimately do. Um, like I said, if someone's picking it up, they can almost come up with a side hop backflip strategy once they kind of get those basics down of how to navigate and move Link around. If there isn't one out there, you can make one pretty quick. The tricks and the glitches are very precise, but there's always tutorials and things out there for those as well. So in terms of just visual speedruns, we have a lot of resources and help videos on YouTube that maybe they don't have like sound cue things, but you could at least see and understand how the glitch works to then get on the path of maybe coming up with how to do it blindfolded. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see more people pick it up. It would be really cool to see other people on the leaderboard too. So definitely a good. I think it's a great game to get into.
And I know you said you were still working on this particular category to improve your time. Or after, I don't know if it's too early to ask this or not, but after getting whatever goal or close to your goal you're wanting, are you going to do different categories blindfolded for Ocarina of Time?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested at this point in exploring some other categories. I might even be more excited to do that than meet my goal in this one. Like to me, a lot of the fun of kind of doing the blindfolded runs isn't necessarily like grinding out for the goal time. It's kind of working out those first few runs. I like coming up with ideas. I like strategizing. I like seeing, oh man, I thought this was 100% and I'm failing it now. Like maybe I tweak it, maybe I look into it, and maybe I understand, like I have a better understanding of what I thought I had. Now I shift my mindset a little bit. So I'm excited to get into some other categories. I don't have any exact ones planned out yet. I was just going to kind of look at a couple other ones. Maybe this one's 20 some minutes long. Maybe I go for one in like the hour and a half range, like an actual longer category, and just see how that goes. But it might not even be like a main leaderboard category. It might just be kind of an offshoot,
Yeah.
kind of more silly one, but I think it would be a good blindfolded one. So yeah, I can't say I have anything exactly planned out, but I am looking forward to doing some other categories for sure.
What's probably the most important thing you think anyone should know before going into trying Ocarina of Time blindfolded? Do you think it's best that to just get familiar with the game first, or just play around with the mechanics more first, or
Yeah, I would definitely play around with some of the mechanics that you probably aren't used to kind of moving around in the game. Even if you played it casually, you're probably used to like rolling and moving through areas that way. I would try and get comfortable with doing side hops and backflips, learning how to do a neutral roll, learning how to target certain walls, maybe like a side hop, side roll, just getting used to the sounds of how enemies are, like we talked about, how Link, what it sounds like when he's on grass, what it sounds like when he's on stone or dirt. Um, if you were wanting to get into blindfolded stuff specifically for this game, I think just kind of maneuvering certain areas like that, just try and, get through Hyrule Field or get through the Lost Woods or get through Kakariko Village, from maybe the start of Kakariko to Death Mountain Trail. Just like come up with a strategy yourself. Don't look at anything. Just like see if you can come up with something to get up the stairs and like go through that area. I think, and then just do it and see, record it and see how it goes. I think would be the most. I found that would be the most like intriguing and interesting thing to start to get used to for blindfolded runs in this game.
is there anything else that you think could be potentially talked about for this game blindfolded, or do you believe that we probably covered pretty much everything that we needed to for today?
Oh man, I feel like we covered a good bit. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of other tricks outside of the ones that we talked about in kind of this run specifically, but yeah, without getting into any other categories or versions of runs, I think that's a good starting point for anybody that's listening. So
And for me, it helps that I've played this game a lot. I would rank it as
Mhm.
probably my third or fourth favorite video game of all time. So
Nice, nice.
I feel a little better talking about this, but I do have plans of reaching out to certain people of other games, especially games that I barely touched. So I'm like
Hmm.
a little nervous about those because I'm like, I don't, am I gonna have to play that game or just watch it a lot? But maybe that will create a better question scenario just because I will be looking at it from as far outside as possible versus this game where I had some prior
Hmm.
knowledge but not the full knowledge. So
Hmm.
hopefully that goes well. But thank you very much for joining. Like I said at the beginning, you were the first person that I thought about that I wanted on here because I remember your AGDQ 2015 run. And at that time, I was in the Kingdom Hearts speedrunning community. I remember immediately after AGDQ, Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2 runners and Birth by Sleep runners booted up their games and was trying to get out of the tutorial section without any practice blindfolded. They just wanted to see
Hmm.
if their prior knowledge can get them out, and a lot of them spent 2 hours just still in the tutorial section. And then that made me at least try Kingdom Hearts blindfolded up to a point, and then I was like, "There's no way this is possible." And I just
Hmm.
stopped until years later when Bubgia beat the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 1 blindfolded. And I was like, "Oh, well, dang, this is possible. Maybe I need to get
Yeah.
back into looking at this stuff." But I think Bubsy had even mentioned that you were the one that got him started as well, or one of the ones who got him started.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah. I was around doing it, I think, before most people had even considered it. So I will take the mantle and enjoy hearing people say that. So
and
yeah, I love that that is the case. You know, that people were inspired enough or got into it because of something that I had done. So yeah, I love to hear that.
me being a low, like a very small channel, I was like, I'm going to try to reach out to him, but I'm expecting no reply just because I don't know if you are active or if you would even go on a low channel. So I'm very appreciative that you came on to do this with me
Yeah,
today.
yeah. No, it seems like you know, for a long time, blindfolded stuff in this game, but in general, has been something that I've enjoyed almost as much as just pure speedrunning itself. So anything that kind of gets more eyes on it and kind of explains more details of it, I think is
Hmm.
a great initiative, and I look forward to seeing where it goes from here.
And
So
I hope this alone is more than enough information of, oh yeah, Ocarina is definitely doable blindfolded, and now I have a better understanding of how and maybe get people interested or make people go, oh, there's too much to it. I'm not gonna try it. But at least
yeah,
they'll know that
yeah.
it's doable and not I don't
Hmm.
understand, therefore fake. But I think this went on a lot longer than I thought it would, and I was afraid
Yeah.
that I wasn't gonna have nearly enough questions to even cover 15 minutes.
No, yeah, no, it was
Uh,
great. I didn't know we were going to go all through the run itself, but that was fantastic to get into,
mhm.
why I was doing certain things where.
Yeah, when I
So
watched it initially, I thought I would understand a lot, and the more I watched it, I'm like, I really don't know how this game actually works, apparently.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot to it.
All right, and probably due to me having a full time wife, kids, busy life, and also potentially wanting to edit these videos, I'll probably try to do a video a month.
Hmm.
This one will probably come out a week after today, but the next one will probably come out next month, and then the next month after that. So that's probably the time frame that I think would work best for me for anyone who would be curious. I already have a couple people in mind that I want to reach out to see if they would also like to join this, but I'm going to wait till this comes out first, see
Yeah, for sure.
what the feedback is, and then go from there. It's going to be one of those that is a complete surprise, I hope, for people and be like, oh, someone's doing something like this. That's cool. Or hopefully they think that
Hmm.
it's cool.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a fun idea for sure. Um, I can't think of too much feedback just from my perspective of being the person interviewed.
In the
I
first
don't
one.
know if it depends how you want it to go, of like if you want it to be the answers to be very kind of genuine and authentic, Sometimes like giving the interviewee person, I've had interviews like this where they give me the questions beforehand and I can kind of think of the answers.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt comfortable regardless because I've talked about this stuff for a long time. So
And
I wasn't like,
I figured you were more than knowledge with this game, and to the point where you could say you know the game like the back of your hand and can play with your eyes closed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's not.
Yeah.
There was no question you were going to hit me that was like.
Mm-hmm.
I might have stumbled a couple of things, but typically I had my thoughts kind of pretty well organized already. But some people might not. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
but I think I'll end it here. So for those who watch, I hope you enjoyed, and good luck to anybody that needs it.